coming on? So I guess we still have a few people coming in. I'll just give people a minute to settle in. Okay, so welcome back from the coffee break, and thank you for attending this session on the role of NRENs. We're going to hear about today three, I think, very great presentations on what is an NREN, what kind of things is it that NRENs can do, what can they do in the future that is different from what they do today, what are new initiatives, how do we support our users, how do we build networks, and not the least, how do we build communities, and how do we support communities of not just NREN people, NREN researchers, but also of our users, of our development, and the wider social community. So we have three talks, different aspects of that topic. The first talk is from Gunnar Bø. Gunnar is from Uninet, the Norwegian NREN. He's been there leading their Uninet at Campus project, looking at how an NREN supports campus networking. He's been at Uninet for many years, and before that, he's been 10 years in industry. Gunnar is currently leading also the GN3 campus best practice effort, and he's going to talk about that project today, about what NRENs can do to support the activities on campus and how we can interact with campus people better.
Thank you, Lars, for that introduction. Just a very small correction so I don't take the honor for something I'm not doing. I'm not in charge of the GN3 project. That's Vidar Faltinsen, which would very much have liked to be here today. But this is the 17th of May, and it's a bit special day. It's the Constitution Day in Norway. So back in Norway today, there's a lot of celebrations, and I would normally have worn a black suit and a tie, but since my wife is not here, I can get away with dressing a bit more casual. I will talk about the role of or an NREN in the role, what role the NREN can have in terms of the work on campuses, and we'll start by looking at some of the statements that some NRENs have made about their role. I have extracted some of the mission statements or vision from different NRENs, and if we're looking at Janet, they say that they are dedicated to the needs of education and research. We can move on to SurfNet and saying that they are working to improve education and research by different means and providing things that are not offered by the market. And if we're looking at what we say at Uninet, we deliver network connections and services to the universities, research institutions, and handle other national ICTs tasks in the best interest of society, which is quite important value for Uninet. There is something else that have also popped up, especially in the last few years, and that's when we're talking about end-to-end. We're talking about the performance end-to-end and also services that are end-to-end, and I'll touch upon that a bit later. So if we look then at the role of the NREN, I like to ask some very simple questions. Where do we find higher education today? And what is the National Research and Education Network without something to connect? You would just have a nice fiber circuit. You need to some campuses in there to connect so that you get a picture more like this. This is very often how an NREN is perceived, connecting different campuses. But we can go on with these questions and ask more about what is a campus then without the end users, and taking one step even further into the campuses. And that is more what we have done in Norway. What the work that we have done most lately is in the context of Shant, but I'm trying to give you a bit of history behind it before it actually became a project in Shant. And the original goal in Norway back in 2006 were quite a few relating to how we could achieve these missions that I mentioned in the beginning, meeting the needs of the higher education, improve education and research, and work to the best interest of the society. We had some goals relating to this, and this is the text directly from that, where we put an effort or emphasis on that we wanted a coordinated and conform e-infrastructure across the campuses in Norway to support these various things that are going on campus, whether it's e-science or storage, distributed teaching or person-to-person communication. But all of this involve the campuses, and for some that spells trouble, for others that spells opportunities and new things that we can do. But we wanted to involve the campuses in a more structured way than we had before, because of course we worked together with the universities and cooperated. But this was a more dedicated effort. So the Giga Campus ran from 2006 to 2009, and I will touch a bit later upon what happened after 2009. And it was presented at the TNC conference in 2006. And I'm not going into all the details of it, but just focusing on the most important aspects of it that we have taken into the Shant project. If we look at the stakeholders in this, we had the government providing some initial funding for this initiative. We had ourselves, the NREN, with a dedicated project team. And we had the universities that we invited and also tempted. Now, temptation is something that in European history or culture perhaps is not always considered something positive. You shouldn't lead people into temptation, but there can be some good things about temptations as well. And that's what we tried to do, find things that the universities were interested in. And some of these essential elements in our work was to have workshops and working groups. And I'll go more into details about how these working groups behave or what they are doing. We had what we called best practice documents. And we also gave advice and support to the campuses with practical issues. So if we look, and in all of this that we were doing coordination, we provided knowledge, and we tried to do this with high quality in all the different parts of our work. The working groups, the purpose of these working groups was to provide a place where people working on campuses where they could meet people that had similar challenges that was focused on the campuses. They could come into these working groups, present their work, the problems, the challenges that they had, and discuss them and hopefully find some solutions or discuss with other people that had already solved it. Also, this was a good place to have technical updates that was very specifically focused on the campuses and not general sales talk from from the vendors. And it gave us a place where we could discuss these best practices, which then again gave us input to best practice documents that we were producing. So if we're looking a bit more on these best practice documents, we had these facilitated in these working groups, or we had separate meetings where we met to work specifically on these documents. And it involved active participation from the NREN. So we had to kind of be a bit driving force, at least in the beginning of this. And I'll tell you more about the lessons learned from that, both in Norway and in our Shant project later in the presentation. But one important aspect of these best practice documents was to have some kind of approval from the community, from the universities in Norway. So we set up a way of having a process, a procedure for these best practice documents, where we worked on these initial versions and we iterated that in the working groups. And when we had a kind of rough consensus in these working groups, we put them up for national approval. And that stage is done by the IT directors at the universities in Norway that kind of formally say, yes, this is good enough, we think this is the best practice that we want to use. Of course, they had checked that with their technical people as well. But this process also gives the people that are not directly participating in the work groups an opportunity to influence these best practice documents. And another important aspect of this is that it also gives commitment that they have been part of the approval process and saying, yes, this is what we think are the best practice and we would like to use them on our campuses. Another aspect of these best practice documents are that they are written, some of them in such a way that we have also used them for as requirement specification for procurement processes in Norway. Procurement have been a very important part of this as well, but I'm not covering that in this presentation. There will be a separate talk on that actually on the General Assembly, I think. And you can then ask why we're not using consultants to produce these best practice documents. Well, if all the universities were doing that by themselves, it would be very expensive, and you would also risk that you wouldn't get the people around that are familiar with the campuses. We rely a lot on the technical experts at the universities because there are very knowledgeable and skillful people available there. So a bit back to the stakeholders that I mentioned earlier. It's the government and the universities and the NREN. And of course, we might want to see this drawn in a little different way, where the NREN actually could dictate what should be going on, but that's not the way it actually works, even though we could wish for this sometimes. The fact is, it's the government that sits with the funding, and they provide funding for the NREN, and for the universities also provide funding for the NREN. So it's important to have a good relationship with these. So what's in this way of working for the government? Well, they have responsibility for the infrastructure and for research and education as a whole. And by supporting this kind of initiative, they take this responsibility seriously, and they show that to the community. And we want also to make the government look good, and that they can also claim part of the success in this work. For the university, we make their life a lot easier because they don't have to produce all these kind of best practice documents themselves, because it takes a bit of work to do it. The universities also get recognition when they participate in these working groups with their specialists, which they like to be to get acknowledged for. And they get access to knowledge. Even if they have skillful people, there are always more to learn from other skillful people that are knowledgeable. And then finally, for the NREN, we add more value to our services by doing this, and we get happy customers. So it's a very good situation for us. If we then look at, if we broaden our view on this, this is what we did in Norway, and we started this in 2006. So is there any more support for this way of working? Well, in 2008, the Ernest report on the campus issue was published. And they have a lot of good recommendation in this report, and you can find it on the Terina website. And one of the recommendations that they gave was to strengthen the collaboration between the national research education networks and the organization and institutions. And they said we could do this in different ways to improve the deployment of key services, but also to coordinate working groups. And they have a lot of similar recommendations that fits very well with the way that we were working. And we didn't pay them to write this report, actually. We didn't even contribute to it. But I think that this report is still very relevant for the NRENs today. So even if it was issued in 2008, it's well worth reading again. So then we go to Chant 3 and the role that we have had in that, or has in that today. This is a huge project, and we are just a very, very small part, as you can see down there on that little circuit. We are part of what's called a networking activities with a campus best practice project. And the participants in this activity it's led by Norway and Vidar Faltinsen, as I mentioned earlier, and Finland and Czechia and Serbia are participating together. And if you look at the man years that we have, I hope that you will take a note of that when we are looking at the results later, because we have 3.5 man years per year in total, which is actually less than 1 man year per NREN each year. The focus is very much on network challenges on campus. And if you remember back to the first talk today, the campus issue and the campus bottleneck was actually mentioned in that talk. So it's just giving more support that there should be focus on the campus part. We're trying to address some of these key challenges on the campus, and there are many different aspects of that, as you can see here. It's the physical infrastructure with power supply, electricity, fire protection in the server rooms, the networking itself with light parts. We have looked at IPv6. We have written recommendation on how to configure the switches in the best way so that you make sure that when you roll out new services, the switches and routers on the campuses are prepared for new services according to the best practices. We work with wireless. We have network monitoring activities, security, and real-time communication. And several of these subjects are also covered in different talks at this conference. So we have challenged both ourselves but also the NRENs participating in this activity to be a facilitator for the people working out on the campuses at the universities to get working groups up and running and provide these to work to provide these best practice documents. If we then look at some of the results from our work, We have working groups up and running in all these countries, in Finland, in Serbia, here in the Czech Republic, and Finland. On average, there are at the moment around 3 working groups in each of these countries. In Norway, we have a lot more, but that's because we have worked with this a lot longer. So this just goes to show that in the time frame that we've spent so far, it's possible to make this work. We also have a lot of best practice documents that have been produced, 25 so far, and they are available on these web addresses. And of course, these cover the areas that I have already mentioned, physical infrastructure. Actually, there's one more here, that's the audiovisual that we have also worked with in the first part of this project, but we are not continuing that part. If we look then at dissemination, because that's part of the reason why I'm standing here today, is to tell you people about the work that we have doing, and perhaps you'll be so interested in this that you would like to know more about it. We have arranged European workshops with campus focus in the areas that you see here. And we have also written up quite a bit of presentations and papers that we are presenting. At this conference, we will be present at UNI's conference, and also we have papers accepted at IEEE. And this poster you can find outside if you want to just have a quick look on some of the work that we are doing. So let's move on to the lessons that we have learned so far. Community building takes time. That's just a fact, so you have to be prepared for that. But it's wise to establish an inner core of people that are contributing and participating in this, but allow other people also to, what we call, be hang-arounds, participate and be part of this, because you never know when they will also show some initiative and contribute. It can be challenging for the work group leader to enforce progress, because people are volunteering here, but it's still possible. Also, key experts, they are usually very busy because they are good at what they are doing, and they don't have any time to write. But it's very important to have them in the group and contribute to the discussions, even if they don't write documents. We also have learned that NRENs, it's better if the NREN pick the topics that should be used initially. That's for all of these countries. The lessons that we have learned here is not specific for Norway. That's collected from all these 4 different countries that have participated in this work. We get better discussions if we draft some best practice documents before we have the meetings. And it's an important point that we shouldn't write huge textbooks on this. We should keep it simple, because if it's the best practice documents are too big, people won't bother reading them. And we have also seen that these working groups and workshops that we have arranged, they are very valuable for informal talks or for people building networks, so they get to know other people that are working with similar issues and can contact them directly. So further work in Chant 3 is to, of course, to create more of these best practice documents. You can see a list here of some of them. We will continue to spread this happy news around. Could be that we could come and present in your country if you're interested, or meeting with your NREN to discuss in more detail how you can organize a campus program. If we go back to Norway finally, our initial project was from run until 2009. We did a customer survey at the end of that, and actually 90% of the universities in Norway wanted us to continue the work that we have been doing. So this campus work is now a permanent activity in Norway. But we are taking this even further with a new initiative called eCampus, where we work with an initiative to support the research and education even more by working on even higher layers at campus, lecture recording, large-scale use of video conferencing and mobile solutions, and I'm sure you will hear more about this in the future. So finally, these are addresses where you can find more information. If you want to contact us on email, there is an email address here. And you can look out for more best practice documents coming along. And you can subscribe to this email list to actually get those announcements. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gunnar. We have time for a few questions. Anyone? It's hard to see out there. Oh. There's more light now. Yeah, there's a question down there. Can we have a microphone?
Hello, I'm Nicole Gregoire from SurfNet. Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering where the end user is in this story. I mean, you said campus guys on university level. Are there any end users like researchers or teachers involved in your working groups?
On the initial work that we have been doing on the campuses, we have not had the researchers participating. It's been mainly the technical staff in the IT departments that have participated. But in the new eCampus initiative, there we have lecturers and researchers and people that you are referring to that are participating.
Okay, interesting, thank you.
Other questions? Yes, there's one more, just in front of the previous questioner.
Hi, Daniele Arena, Casper. I wanted to ask you, these are best practices for campuses. Do you have anything about best practices for national research networks?
Good question. No, we have not. We have focused on best practices for the campuses in this work, but of course some of this work that we have done is applicable in different areas than the campuses. Companies and big organizations in Norway have also contacted us and used these best practices documents in their areas. So it's not like they are unique to the campus, because you find campuses in other contexts as well.
Any more questions? No, it doesn't look like it. Well, I have a question, because I was wondering, what is the reaction from the campus people to this stuff? I could see campus people saying, oh no, don't you come and run our network, we'll run the network ourselves, thank you very much, we don't want the NREN to take over everything. So do you get any of that?
Well, we try to be very sensitive to this, because of course we are coming from, we don't want to take control on their campuses. It's very much the universities that are responsible for this, but we have managed to create a good spirit of cooperation, and they see the benefits of working together with us in this. So we're very careful not to kind of step on their toes on the campuses, but yeah, listen carefully to what they are saying.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gunnar.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is Martin Beck. Martin is the Deputy Director of UNICE, which is the Danish Center for IT for Research and Education. Martin has been involved in internet since mid-80s, and I thought also in designing and operating research and education networks. Recently, he's been doing many things, but one of them is to look into how can NRENs share services, build services together, use one service from another NREN, and so forth. There's been a lot of effort in the Nordic area that Martin has been leading. He's tell us more about that today. So welcome, Martin.
Thank you. Well, this is about the services that are offered by an NREN. If you look at an NREN, usually we think of it as we have the network and then there's a number of services on top. Here we define that everything is a service, also the basic network, the basic internet provision and so on. And if we look at all the services an NREN provides, we call it the service portfolio, and I've shown you some statistics up there, which makes it fair to conclude that an average NREN has about 30 services. Now, if we look at those services and say, where do they come from? How does the NREN actually produce or procure the services? Of course, some of them are homemade, where we, the NRENs, buy the servers, and we we also maybe even write the software ourselves, or we take it open source and so on, DNS, NTP, stuff like that, we build ourselves usually, okay? Some services, on the other hand, is the direct opposite. There we buy a commercial product and we just resell it, repackage it, or maybe add federated authentication, AI to it, and then we have a service. And then, of course, we also have services as part of the NREN portfolio that are not produced by ourselves as an NREN, but by our member institutions, by universities and so on. We say, oh, this is a very good service. We make that available and support it for the whole of our constituency. And of course, we are so fortunate to have the regional organization Nordjonet, but many of you are in the same position where you have either regional organizations or your country is so big like Spain or somewhere you actually have a lot of networks that are grouped together. So maybe you get your service from the regional collaboration organization, or from Xi'an through all these nice EU projects, and possibly through a combination of these. Now, there's also another last alternative, which of course I'm going to explore here, and that is we could also get it directly from another NREN. If they have produced it, if they have made it, it will probably also fit our needs. And it will probably be better and more efficient than doing it together with a commercial partner all over again, or making it ourselves. So it seems a good idea because it's also a way to complete the service portfolio and make available to our users what they have in other countries or other regions. So it makes sense altogether. In order to explore this, we have we started in the Nordjonet group of NRENs in the so-called CTO forum to look at this, and we found out that this was a good idea to explore. So we created the so-called Inter-NREN Service Provisioning Working Group. I mean, what it's called is not really that interesting. Only all these documents are available online. So if you actually want to find them, you'll need to know where to search. Okay. And what we did there was to get together the people that really worked with service provisioning, service portfolio management, and so on, and say, let's start by actually make a map of what we have, each of us. The so-called service map, and we have some small symbols down there. The legend here saying how much is it federated. Maybe it's not at all in need of being federated because it's just publicly available, like DNS or whatever. And here we have the service map, and of course you're not supposed to read it. Read it online, study it if you want to. It's just to show you that you may be aware that your own NREN has a gap in some place, or maybe you can compare how do the other NRENs produce a given service and so on. Actually, it's quite interesting because you think you as an NREN together with your users, that you have invented everything there is to invent, but once you see the service map, you get much wiser, okay? And what do we use the service map for? Of course, yeah, I've just explained it, getting new ideas, and of course getting ideas how to operate services jointly. But once you start doing that, you run into a number of obstacles. And dealing with these obstacles is really what this work I'm presenting here today is about. The first obstacle of all, naturally, is knowing what is out there, what services do they have, and I mean, that's the service map, okay? We've done that. Then there's, next thing is you need to get the money. Probably if the service is not completely free of charge, you need to pay some money to contribute to that service, and doing that also presents some legal obstacles. Or challenges, you might say. Then you find out that maybe in another NREN they have a very nice service, but they have actually bought that under a contract which does not allow them to resell it to us. And if that's the case, then it's just too bad. Then they'll have to buy it under a new contract, or we'll have to buy it ourselves. In any way, you can't sell it on, and so there's no possibility of collaboration there. And preparing your own services to be exported or shared is really also a thing that needs attention. And then, of course, in order to log into the services where that is relevant, you need the federated AAI, and that is almost in place, even on a pan-European level. And then, of course, the localization or translation enabling and the IPR clearing, if that's a case, is also things that needs to be taken care of. So this is really the shopping list you need to do, you need to go through if you are preparing to export a service. I wouldn't say export, really to get economy of scale by having more people contribute to the operation and to the establishment of that service. A few of these points I'll explore in more depth here. Let's start by the model for payment or cost recovery, procurement, whatever you call it. Today we have a scheme, at least in the Nordic area, where we get a service, that's the red arrows up there, and for that we pay to that regional community entity, Nordjonet, and but if we are going to exchange services between two networks in the Nordic area, then usually if it's over the threshold, then we'll have to go through a procurement process. That's the default value. The problem of a procurement process is that it is, of course, a burden for the that party who is going to write the call for tender and do the contracts and all that and evaluate bids and so on. And you tend to think only of that. That is a burden in itself, but it's actually also a burden for the supplying NREN, because they have to make a complete offer and enter into a contract that they, a lot of administration that they wouldn't have had to do anyhow in any other case. One idea has been to simply add it to the Nordjonet service portfolio. So the Nordjonet gets a little service back, and they sell that on, you could say, to the other entities, but it also has some legal problems, and it's not always possible actually to do that. So that needs to be explored too. We have recently, Nordjonet did had an expert legal opinion on a part of this matter, where they said, or where it was determined that in a case like Nordjonet, where it is completely owned by the partners, you could think of it as a kind of joint venture, and you don't need to, just as you don't need to make a call for tender if you're producing something yourself, then if you're producing something in common, you can also regard it as doing it yourself, and therefore you don't need to do a call for tender. But of course, then if Nordjylland, the clearinghouse here in this scheme, still has to do a call for tender if they procure something from the outside. Yeah, the solution to all this, still, if you want to be a part of a project which is already running, the solution to this, which has been proposed, is to simply turn it into a community project where everyone is equally, not equally, but in a fair proportion, contributing to that project. Because if they are contributing to the project, it's not something they buy from the outside, and then also you can get around the obligation to call for tender. I have a few illustrations of the matter here. I don't know whether words or figures make it more clear, so we try again with the illustrations here. Here we have a situation where we have a number of suppliers, and of course, through a procurement process, we call for tender. Four of them they get disappointed, while the fifth here he gets to supply to the NREN, and then it is for this to work. They should have this call for tender preparing or foreseeing that it is not only bought by this NREN, but also exported or on behalf of the other entities that you want to export to. So if you just have a homemade service here, you could say it's homemade, so he doesn't need to call for tender to use it himself. Whereas if it's over the threshold, of course, you need to call for tender here at NREN 2. And the obvious way to go about it is to make it a kind of homemade service where you do it in common. This is also, for instance, has been the case with the development efforts around the NSI, Network Service Interface, and also File Center, a very nice project that has been. How many of you went to the BOF yesterday? Yes, there was a few, but I can say for the rest of you, you missed a good thing there. Now, yeah. Then if you look at the call for tender itself, you also need to prepare in the call for tender or have it foresee that you will actually contract, as it is saying here, on behalf of other contracting authorities. So here is an example where Nordjylland, they made a nice contract with Juniper, and this contract says that anyone in the Nordic region can buy under this contract, and Juniper agrees to that, and that's fine. But in the original call for tender, they actually forgot to tick the box. Yes, here we are procuring on behalf of others, and I mean, Nordjylland, we have talked about that, and they're fine with it, but I'm just taking it here as an example of something you should beware. Okay. Then there's also the problem of commercial providers. For instance, if Sunet in Sweden, they have a very nice Adobe Connect service, but then when we call Adobe and say, hey, Adobe, we want to have the same prices as they do in Sweden, and the same terms and conditions and so on. They say, okay, you want that, but then we need to make it one contract, okay? One contract for everyone. Fine, we say, very good. And then they say, but then you're a service provider. Then you're not academia anymore, because you're providing for several institutions. So that's quite another rate, and you can't get the good prices. So there's also an obstacle in the way that commercial operators are actually pricing and regionalizing their sales force and so on. The third obstacle, I'm happy to say, is almost removed. Today we have in a kind of federated AAI in the Nordic region, and also that is the case on the pan-European level with EduGain. So that's a good thing. And we have started to exchange services, actually. So there are some examples up here, and there are more to come. We have planned, again, if you go to NordioNet Wiki, you can find that we have great plans for a lot of service exchange. So I think this is moving. And also moving on a European level in TFMSP, task force I'm participating in, we have discussed this and wanted to more or less do the same and see how far it can get us actually. And again, the first prerequisite to do this is to make a service map, and we've started little by little to do that. The best example is actually the service map of Red Iris, already put on the Terena wiki there, the conference. And you can see you're not supposed to read it, okay? It's just to show you that they've done an impressive job actually documenting what they have and putting it in comparable boxes so that all of us can see what we are missing, okay? Believe you me, it's good. And again, taking the Nordic model to a European level, we could have Dandy or Terena act as a clearinghouse for cost recovery and so on, but we are not there yet. From a legal point, I think this should be studied a little closer before we are ready to go. And also in TFMSP, we've proposed to create a kind of set of best practices to document what is needed in order to exchange services, and I think that will probably be a work that will commence later this year, I hope at least. And also, yeah, like we have the Nordic Kalmar Union Federated AAI, it's also there on a European level, and there are examples also on a European level of shared services. Cross-border fibers and so on are also a good example of shared services, really, where you have to find a cost-sharing model and so on. So it is little by little going, and I think if we could build this into the way that we build our service portfolio, each of every service, and think about this once we create it and make the contracts and so on, we could get a lot further. The status today I've illustrated by little progress bars here. Yeah, so that's how far we got, and I hope in a year or two that we will have all the progress bars totally read. Thank you. Yeah.
So we have some time for questions. Any questions from the audience?
No, but it's self-explanatory.
It looks like there's a question over there.
Yeah.
We get a microphone.
Alex Reid, Arnet in Australia. Shared services always sounds like a great idea because we're doing all the same things and so we can share it. And I know there's some brilliant examples. But I also worry about the extra overhead of trying to ensure that something that's being developed or being acquired meets the diverse needs of a variety of customers, different NRENs. How do you assess that? And have you done any work to sort of evaluate how much extra effort is required because you're providing something for a range of customers? And at what point does it become too top-heavy and the extra effort is not worth it? And how do you decide that?
Providing a service or developing a service in as a group or in common, or providing a service for someone else except for outside your own constituency is always a small burden. But usually it's worthwhile or it is worthwhile if you then can grow the whole service because you get better economy to do the development or things like that. So I think it's really a kind of a market thing. If you you'll not do this unless it pays off for you to share the service. And I think that will regulate it. And some of the services are really similar and don't even need to be translated or anything, whereas other services, of course, are very specific for per constituency or per NREN, naturally. And there are also a lot of things limiting. I mean, in some cases you get a grant or you get money, and there are a lot of conditions tied in with that. So you can't share anything. It needs to be on the territory. There can be a lot of constraints there, naturally also. So it's not possible in every case. I'm not advocating for everything to be one shared service delivered by that one service in a specific field will fit all NRENs, not at all. But I think there are some low-hanging fruits that we don't harvest today.
Thank you. There's one more question down here.
Hi, Jan Meyer from Uninet.
Hi.
One of few persons who actually has done this before a couple of times. So I have some practical experience with the problem space.
This is a file center guy.
Yeah, file sender and the guy that brought you those nice service certificates against the flat rate. The problem Alex points out is, yeah, you do get a certain amount of overhead. What I've experienced is you get overhead if you do all the things on your own as well. I'm a PKI specialist, I used to be. Every NREN has a PKI specialist. Those people need to train, those people need to maintain their experience, their skills. That is overhead as well. So if you actually share the burden of developing a certain service, then you can specialize. And that also means that certain NRENs can choose to no longer have a very good PKI specialist because someone else takes care of the problem. There's also the cost of opportunity. The two projects that I'm so far most happy with, those were projects that I could never have achieved in my own NREN because we didn't have enough money. It was not there. But with 8 NRENs, we did. And the result is fairly nice. So it's not so much a matter of there's only the overhead cost. No, there's the cost of lost opportunity if you don't do this. And of course, there's a balance to be found there. What I found is as long as there is one person who can actually keep track of everything that's going on and can keep proper control, proper project management, you're usually quite all right. As soon as you need to do design by committee, then you're probably not quite all right. Not small. You can do them large, but you have to identify carefully where you put the collaborative effort. What I never ever would want to do in a project like that is take on the support burden for his community. That would be wrong. He has all those relationships, he knows those people, he speaks the language. I don't speak Danish, I speak Norwegian. So that's something I would never want to do. But a certificate factory does not care whether it serves 300,000 people or 3 million people. That's called automation, and that's what computers are good at. So you have to chop the problem space up in manageable pieces and figure out exactly where does it make sense and where do I need to be as close as possible to the user. That would be different per service that you deliver. This also forces you as a service provider to productize properly, to package the product that you're selling, more than when you would leave it to your own NREN.
At least I can back that up. This was never the intention of this was to share technical services, not to outsource all the support to India or things like that. So it's merely a technical thing. But
building on that, isn't it also the case that this is much easier to do if the service was built with this in mind initially? I mean, it's harder to share a service that where we didn't think about this than something like File Thunder that was originally built with the thought in mind that more than one NREN would run that kind of service. So it's something that we have to get in the habit of thinking about as NRENs when we start building something new. From the start, think about what would this look like if I did this also for my neighboring NREN, because that would then it's then sharing much easier.
It can also ensure the existence and development of a service if your own funding temporarily goes away for that service, then it can still exist. Yes?
Okay, more questions for Martin? Looks like that's not the case. Thank you very much, Martin. So, our final speaker for this session is Stefan Ribas. Stefan has spent 12 years in industry, building software, supporting large software projects, doing open source development. Since 2008, he's joined Andrea in France, where he's co-led several open source projects. He's talked to us today about how to build a successful open source community, how to get commitment and energy into such a community, and how to direct the evolution of the community. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm coming from INRIA, which is a French public institute working on computers, robotics, reality, virtual reality, but as well embedded systems. We are doing a lot of open source, and I'm very happy today to explain our methodologies that we give as best practices within our institute to our scientific. So I'm coming from development. So I'm not coming from your community, which is more network infrastructure, to do it simple. So I don't use the same terms as you. When I will speak about network, it's a network of people. When I will speak about project, for you it could be a product, okay? So sorry if I use some terms for you which are not the same, but I will try to speak your language or your dictionary. So, first of all, I would like to say that a lot of people spoke since I arrived on Sunday evening about communities, but nobody gave a definition. And I suppose it's quite important to see that a community are a group of people who, for a specific topic, share one or more of the following. So interest, speciality, roles, concerns, set of problems, and a passion. But what makes them work together? It's interacting on a continuum basis. I mean, they ask and answer questions. They share their knowledge. Thanks to this sharing of knowledge, they could as well use ideas of others, and so improve, progress, and again, increase their competencies. And of course, more important, perhaps, they solve problems for others. But again, a lot of people shown methodologies yesterday, today, this morning, but they don't they give you some tricks or hints, but I think you should know the genesis. Why an open source community grows up, why a community grows, why what is the birth, why suddenly, puff, it blow up, or it blossom. So it blossom. Very important. For me, the project answer a need. Then the scientific will publish the project, the open source project, the code to increase the development, the code development. And then he will take care that he's got a community where the network, where the people gets benefits or get interest to participate. And everybody gets, it's a positive sum of people. I have an example, a French example, very famous. This is EZPAC, which is in fact sort of setup program built by one of our friends, Julien Ponge. He's very famous in the Java community. It's quite huge. And he needed to, for his studies, to build a program and to deploy it. He couldn't find for Java on the web a program that could create his setup and deploy on several machines. So he had an issue, he had a need, and he could not find the software to do it. So he created the setup program for Java program for deployment. He answered his need, then he published it on the web to promote his existence and to increase the development. And then since then, it's really a huge success. Of course, now he's the community manager, and he tries that everybody gets benefit from it. Another example is File Thunder. I know that we are a lot speaking about it, but it seems to answer a need in the Terrana community. So I'm sure this will grow up and the community will grow. A bonus for you. I don't know how many people of you knows Arduino. Can you raise up your hand? Arduino. Ah, okay, good. Okay, so then I want, if you are fun, if your project is fun, then you get more chance of success, to be honest. Arduino, look on the web, you will see a lot of artistical stuff done it. It's an enabled system where you can plug other modules, hardware modules, like a Lego. And then suddenly you create in few hours a really nice application, end-app system application, without much knowing about coding or even about electronics. You learn by practices. And it's very funny, it's very fun. It answers the need. The community is positive. It's open source, so the code, you can get it from the web. And it's fun. Of course, you cannot, I mean, it's quite hard when we're doing network infrastructure, or even myself when I'm doing research, to be fun. That's life. But at least keep it that you should answer a need. So that's it. That's the method. Finished. Yes, it is. No way. Unfortunately, when you will start your project, it's like this. You want to go to the Red Cross. Ah, I know that I can show. Yes. You want to go here to get the treasure. You will see. There is a lot of danger. You have to cross the mountains, the caves where there is some very bad guys waiting for you. Oh, the pirate comes. Well, you see. It's not so easy. For me, what is really important, and for INRIA as well, we are a research public institute, values as roots, open source values as roots. If you don't have any question at the end of this, of this talk, don't hesitate to ask me about that. I have a very nice story. Within INRIA, we did a mistake about values, and I can teach you, I can tell you. A project is with a community, and I even would say to you, community over code. Yesterday, I've seen someone with a nice t-shirt, must be in the room, with better technology, better community. Sorry, community over code. For me, it's important, the technology. People are more important. Community over code. We are from the development arena. We are in RIA doing a lot of development. We take care about our developers. This evening, they are all in a meeting for 2 days. They are going to do parties. They are going to do projects during the night and the day. We are inviting them. We are taking care of these people, but there is a relationship with them, project with the community. A provocation, community breeding. Unfortunately, it's a bit true. If you see my days, what I'm going to show you now, it's really that every morning I do the same, and I mean, it's really well organized. People, people, people. But what you need as well is a methodology. And it's what I'm going to try to show you. To be honest, there is several methodologies, so don't take this one as the truth. I'm sorry for that. It's just my ideas, okay? First of all, you should analyze. Start with a sort of analyze phase. And in fact, it starts with a dream. You should dream about your project. Really, a lot of scientists lost the dream. A lot of people, engineers and developers, are losing dreams. Dream. It's really important. We lose that today, nowadays, with this, this world we are living in. In there, you are going to take a drink with your friends, could be, and you are going to talk about your project, your ideas, and perhaps, well, thanks to this dream, you will define topics. But as well, thanks to this dream, you will have ideas of your core team. And even some guys who who got some leadership, some leaders. Of course, you will have described your daily job, your daily project, and so you will have to define processes in terms of governance. Are you going to have one leader who decides of everything, or are you going to delegate with a vote like a meritocracy? The intellectual property right should not be underestimated, but it's not complicated. Licenses are not so complicated. A lot of lawyers and counsel are telling you it's complicated. To be honest with you, it's not true for me. I mean, the top 10 licenses, we know them. If you use them, we know how they are compatible, what are the conflicts. So for many small projects, open source projects, licenses are not complicated. Of course, for Linux distribution, then it's another story, but people who are doing that are really big top-level experts. Okay? In communication as well, you should define your processes, and in terms of project life cycle. In the end, you're going to end up with your collaboration guidelines. Of course, when you start a project like this, I'm not going to ask you to fulfill a 1 or 2 pages describing your governance. Go to Apache website. There is very small example of nice processes, nice politics, and so on about governance, intellectual property, communication. And if you go to Eclipse, you will find nice description of project life cycle. Get them, look at them, and try just to do it simple for you. Very simple, 2-3 lines. You will grow it, your processes will grow as soon as you will have a bigger community. Yeah. Community tooling. You need community tooling to collaborate all together. And I noticed that a lot of you spoke about non-open source project. Yesterday I heard SharePoint, fair enough. Today I heard Mathematica. There is Scilab from INRIA, which is an excellent tool competing with Mathematica. For SharePoint, well, for me, we experiment ELG. ELG is a very nice project, open source project, where you can build a community of practices very easily. Our scientific loves it, because they are experimenting it. It's not in production for us in INRIA. We are going to, after the test, we will see. But the people who started to work with it are really happy. Because this tool, in very few seconds, even a secretary can create a group, a working group. And then our secretary choose, okay, I create a group, I give a mission statement, I want a forum, I want a blog, I want a document repository, etc. In fact, this tool is really simple, and I really advise you to use it. Another point is that I mentioned about community tooling. Community tooling is really important in terms of collaboration. For us, it's a forge. But for your structured content, a wiki. Or as well for your promotion and awareness, social net engines. Okay? So, I continue. If I have to give you 2 or 3 tricks, or at least to take away, a good project name, a clear mission statement, and an architecture of participation. Really important. Because like this, you will be able to let people contribute to your project, external people, manage volunteers, etc. So think during this phase about what will be your architecture of participation. Okay, second point, build. We have to build. It's where you put bricks and mortars together and you start to code, you install your ELG project, etc. Unfortunately, I don't have time to explain you this. So I will just give you 2 or 3 tricks because I want to focus on other parts. But for the building, when you are going to start coding, well, I advise you to concentrate on a decentralized architecture. Think about Firefox. Firefox lets you to add plugins. The architecture, in fact, if you look at the engine, it's a sort of service-oriented architecture. It's where you can put plugin and plugin. Think about Eclipse. Eclipse is plugins of plugins. Like these contributors can easily come and contribute independently of your core engine. Documentation, I have a nice story about that. 2 PHP framework about security. One of them is well written, the code is perfect, no documentation. Second project, PHP project, security framework, very nice documentation. The code is not so good, if you look at it, it's not perfectly written, there is optimization you can do. The second project with documentation well written is successful. It's really successful. The other one, no documentation, but the code is really good. Sorry, we don't use it because when I arrive, I want to learn. So what I start with, read the fucking manual. So, documentation. Don't underestimate it. A lot of people does it. Okay. How many people get that yesterday? Wow, that's all. I didn't do well my job. Okay. I promoted my existence. It's the same as you. You have finished your code, or you have at least a package, a binary package. You can show something to people, documentation, white papers. You have some work done, and it can be given to the others. It's time to promote your existence. It's what I did. So for that, I advise you to follow this workflow. I will try, in fact, to send broadcast messages through mailing list, through my social network platforms, but as well to people who are doing webzines, as well forums, bloggers, etc. And then this will reach to different communities. And these communities, maybe some people may join back to you. So let's see how I do it. Everything I'm saying, I do it. Huh? I built a list of contacts since few years. In fact, depending on the communities we have, depending on the project we have, we try to find on Google other communities to see if we could share interest and we could help to join with them or at least to promote our existence. You know. As well, I ask my colleagues if they have any contacts, or even I use my own contact networks to send messages. I participate to conferences and events, and my colleague as well. Thanks to that, I get more and more contacts. Again, another point, collaborate with other FLOSS initiative is important because then you will get more emails, more contacts, and so when you are going to promote something, it's much better. Of course, this takes a lot of time. It's since several years I'm doing that, so now my contact list is huge, but it took me a long, but it's worth. Don't underestimate this. This will be part of your success. At the end, you have seen that we can use some web tooling. So I use Google Search, Google Alerts, Technorati, LinkedIn Search, and many others that I keep secret. No, you can ask me and I will show you. But I couldn't put the list. Excuse me. Let's see an example, Google Alerts. How many of you use that? You should. Excellent, guys. You're excellent. What I do is, in fact, I put some keywords like Terena, open source, and then every morning I receive the list of very nice articles. For instance, here, what is the top open source licenses? What the cloud can't be separated from open source? I looked at Terena. This is a good for monitoring your community. Terena, I'm sorry, I didn't got any Google alerts. I'm sorry, in few hours. And this is, so you should monitor Terena community with that, sorry. Okay. What I do from there is you see internetnews.com, InfoWorld, but I get as well another list with a lot of bloggers, a lot of webzines, very accessible for me, really. I create then, from there, my list of people who are taking care of these blogs. And then when I will have to promote or to sustain, I send news to them. You know what? They accept. And when these people need a news from me, it's the reverse way. They ask me, hey, can you promote ourselves? I do it. You have seen that there were 2 nice articles. What I do as well is that I create groups in LinkedIn. I create groups in Twitter, etc., etc. And what I use is a tool that from one tweet, it goes through LinkedIn, all my groups, all my Twitter groups, my identity.k, etc., Technorati, etc. And in fact, what I do is either I use Twitters or I use this tool called Yono to send broadcast messages to my different communities, different groups. But as well, I could send the article, the link of the article. Like these people, hey, that's a nice article. And they read it. So I keep a sort of momentum, and the people respect the group, say, hey, it's good. I mean, he sent me a nice article. That's the trick. And sometimes, thanks to the Twitters, thanks to sending mails to people, well, a surprise is that big international magazines comes, like The Wire or whatever, without knowing it. These guys came to our conference, we build and we promote its existence. People came, we didn't know it, and they did an excellent article about us. So that's an indirect effect. So about promotion, I would really advise you to use multiple communication channels, really. Sustain. Very hard part. But let's try to propose some stuff. Normal initiative. Hold regular conferences, do periodic events like Terena conferences, which I find really well organized, lovely, nice place, nice people, nice events in the evenings to talk with people. So really keep that, and I hope it will long last. Another thing I always do is, again, thanks to Google, thanks to grabbing some stuff from Technorati and other places, I really try to post on my forums the news. And even sometimes Arduino does that as well. They have a forum and a blog. The forum, they see some interesting topics, they grab it and put it on the blog on the first page. It's excellent to do that because, again, it gives you momentum, it gives you interesting information to share with the people. Facilitate knowledge sharing. In INRIA, we do webinars with our developers. Every 15 days, they can come for 1 hour. This program is new, so we are launching it now using Big Blue Button, an open source product that builds its sort of you're on the web, you go, you have little webcams, audio, chat, and then at the middle you have your slides presenting. It's quite nice. In 15 minutes you can create conferences and the system. I mean, it's really easy. So Big Blue Button and webinars are really good for knowledge sharing. Facilitate user and contribution recognition. I mean, facilitate users. It's easy. What are the new members? What are they doing? A little word about them. Excellent. Contributors. What are the top contributors on your page, on your Forge? It's quite good to do. I'm going to drink. Another thing as well is to visit and participate to conferences. Really, because you will be able to promote, in fact, your existence again, your project. So, I mean, you have to do that. Of course, you choose the conferences you want to visit, but don't hesitate as well to cross boundaries. I came here to Terena. I'm not from your community, but I came here. I cross boundaries. Propose initiative. So to propose initiative, you can have very funny ones and very complex one with a lot of budget. Whatever, try really to think of that. It's really important. So in INRIA, for instance, we are doing coding contests, newsletters, what else? Workshops, many things. Use social networking again, and do some periodic review. Because since you started, you were very small. Then you build your code, then you started to promote, then you visit conferences, people join you, you are growing. But well, it would be nice to look if there is no other communities now who as well as grow up and could be interesting to join efforts with them, you know? So don't hesitate to look around you. So this is our initiative, 3 of them only. Boost Your Code is a coding contest. We offer 1 year, INRIA is offering 1 year of contract for developer who propose a very nice project. So it's finished. We are currently evaluating the proposals. A lot of students, in fact, send us a proposal of a nice open source project, and perhaps one of them will get 1 year of contract with us, and he will develop his idea. We are doing the FOSA conference, which is the Free Open Source Software Academia conference. It's a conference for insiders who speak to insiders. We are a bit fed up to hear a lot of stupid things about open source. It's not the war, it's not a transfer methodology. It's much more than that. It's people. And another point as well, we are doing a contest within our own organization between scientific. In fact, we have to propose a nice development project, a nice research development project, and we select the best ones and we offer them all the budget, everything for them to do that over 2 or 3 years. This is really good because thanks to that, we can even see if 2 laboratories are doing the same, and so we can ask them to join together. Joining meaning doing the project together, not merging. We never merge, and we don't want that. So, about sustain, if I have to take away something, join forces with other projects. It's really important, really. I heard about exchange services, the talk before, it's really that. I mean, try sometimes, if it makes sense, of course, if it makes sense. It's really a question of that. Join forces with other projects and pay back for the help. You will see. I have many stories about that. Doing that is really successful, but I don't have much. I don't know how long I have. It's okay? It's okay, perfect. Of course, you have to recontribute to open source if you want it to work. I'm sorry, but INRIA is experimenting a tool called ELG, and my friend and I are recontributing. We are, whenever we can, we try to contribute on the code of ELG because it's really needed. We use the tool for our intranet, but for our experimentation, of course, but we need as well to recontribute. So we are trying to create plugin and then we publish it on the web. Another way as well, a very nice story I want to give you. INRIA is participating to a contest, the different University of France and Canada and Belgium. It's really the University of France who does it. They do a contest during 1 night. All the developers, all the students are in different places and they start developing for 1 night on a project. And at the end of the night, they have to give us the results, and we give prices. So I participate to that, so I don't sleep during one night, but it's okay, it's really funny. And then I propose a project, many of us propose a project, I propose a price. 12 hours non-sleep, I had just to think of a project. The good stuff for that is that I got, in the end, doing that, I got all the mailing list of the students. And when I told you that we were doing an initiative about boost your code, so earning 1 year of contract, I sent the 1,000 email saying, hey, look, we have boost your code. It's for you. So thanks to this initiative, I got a list of contacts, a huge one. And I could send a broadcast message. Monitor. I'm not going to spend too much on that, but because it's nearly the end. And I want to tell you, of course, you will have to check your web portal, meaning the number of downloads, the number of visits. Of course, you will have as well to check the code quality with integration testing. But what you should do as well is community at large. Are you at the introduction phase, growing phase, maturity, revival, or decline? It's really important because where you put this, this point, you won't be able to do a lot of stuff. I mean, when you are introduction, you cannot do things compared to maturity. And when you are at maturity, you have a lot of resources to propose a lot of initiatives. So really, you have to look at community at large. And many people misunderestimate to do that, community at large. I use a dashboard for that. I'm going to show it to you. What is important, this is my dashboard. Healthy communities, I noticed since my research is doing that. Trust recognition is important. Listening, I heard before listening. One of the guys here said you have to listen to your users. Yes, exactly that. But an healthy community has driving purpose, is clear activity, sense of accomplishment. Communication is transparent. You have a lot of actions. Neutrality is really important as well because you will, by neutrality, you ensure the long life of your project, because if you have too much industrials, perhaps you will be captured by the industrials, and so you will die very quickly because your community will live. So neutrality is important. Leadership, participation, relationship cross boundaries. Okay, but I mean, I'm speaking, but what are my successful projects? Well, unfortunately, results may vary. Depends on your project, depends on the people. People are not easy sometimes to control, and we don't need that, by the way. We should motivate them. So, of course, yes, results may vary. If you want. Yeah, I can. You can take a picture. So this is from Microsoft, by the way. I don't care about IP here. So no, it's Microsoft who says open source is not always so good. So it's a joke for me as well. It's a real advertisement. They said, Microsoft said, open source is not always so good. Okay, so what we noticed during the different projects we did, we speed up the startup phase, really, because we knew what we wanted to do. We had a clear mission statement. We know how to collaborate together. We know the tools we needed, and so we could quickly build up an infrastructure for our community and our Forge to develop. Thanks to the method about promotion, we really do that. We really, step by step, we do exactly what I'm telling you. So we improve the dissemination, in fact, and the promotion of our existence. And of course, thanks to that, and there is another way, we show to industrials or not industrials of a community, they see our methods, and they think we are professionals. And so it increases the exploitation plan, really. Industrial loves to see this. They are, oh yes, they look good, these guys, because they have the method. But another point we have seen, it's really it helps to grow the community, doing really that. And I really insisted on join efforts. Thanks to that, we are building alliances now, OPs, KDE, Linux Foundation. But it's not all, with as well other people. I've shown you as well some keywords like transparency, relationship, etc. So for us, it's really a human adventure. The method as well shows a human adventure, or tries to emphasize on the human adventure. We are human, we are people. And of course, all of that ensure that the life after the completion of a project continues, and I have a lot of examples where, thanks to the building alliances as well, the project is now continuing. It's the end of the European project, but 4 guys, 4 industrial plus 4 university continues to work together now, without the European Commission paying. So, and this is for several projects. You can ask me the project afterward, I can give you the list. But as well, I told you, results may vary. In my article, I really tried, I mean, it's much more explained than that. It's really, really, it's small, yeah. It's really explained in deeper details. So I really wish you to read the article. It's 10 pages, really worth to look at it. There is a lot of tricks, a lot of killer hints even. So I just put 4 main stuff. Some of our project didn't succeed really because of people commitment, because we misunderestimate the creativity of the people and their leadership. Really, it's important. And as well, some research scientific underestimate the time for community management, really. Of course, today this is changing, so people are understanding that they should increase community management time. Yeah, so it's good. And of course, a community does not grow or like this. Arduino did it in 3 years. So I heard yesterday that it may take time. Yeah, usually it can take very long. As I told you, if you answer need, blah, 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 if it's fun, look, Arduino 3 years. In 3 years, we had a huge community, a mouth-to-mouth promotion, no penny in anything. Everybody's delegating, everybody's working. But this is really an exception, I would say. Compared to others like OW2, Scilab, what else, SenseLab, for instance, it takes much longer. So really, honestly, it takes time. Really, in average, I can give you, we have some studies about the time. People say 10 years, 5 to 10 years, so yeah. So, ed cuj. And thank you, grazie, obrigado, tak. I don't, in Chinese, I'm sorry, and the other language, sorry, I kitos.
Thank you very much, Stefan.
You're welcome.
Any questions? It would be easy to see if we get the lights up a bit. Okay.
Good, no question.
Any questions from the audience?
Lunch.
People are waiting to run away to lunch. So I was thinking,
Yeah?
when you were talking about sort of the informal infrastructure for communities,
Yeah.
being on all these social networks, going to conferences as this one, being in the discussion of the community. But at the same time, you have your more closely knit community for your particular project. So how do you maintain the boundary between the two, and how do you maintain that you use the right time on your own particular project, and how much time you devote to the community at large?
So first of all, you shouldn't be afraid of foreigners, or you should cross boundaries. But it's true, it has to make sense. Every time I'm sending a mail, or every time I'm going to a conference, or even I'm going to collaborate with someone, just before I take the time to say, does it make sense for us? Really? It's really important. And sometimes you say no. But yeah, it's like this, I do it. Very easy, very easy. You know.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Does not look to be the case. So thank you very much again, Stefan.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. I know you all want to run away to lunch, but before you do, a few announcements. Be aware that there are demos going on all day. They've been running all breaks and all the days of the conference. Go to the stands outside and watch the demos. Some of them are very excellent. Also know that today, this afternoon in the coffee break, the people participating in the student poster competition will be at their posters, available for your comments, for questions, for discussion about their posters. So go visit these posters and have a talk with these students who've done a lot of hard work. And look at the conference program for tonight, because there's a long list of BOFs tonight, and many of them look like I would like to be in several places at once. I need some cloning technology. Please do participate in the BOF tonight. With that, thank you very much for participating.